In this video, I'll show you how you can create this super realistic 3D animation which I created for my high ticket client. And yes, like always, I'll be sharing with you guys all the assets and the project file. And yeah, hopefully you will learn a lot from this tutorial. And yes, let's get straight into it. Okay, so first I'll be getting this dark paper texture background from Canva itself. Next I'll be getting this brain PNG, and as well as I'll be getting this crumbled paper background from Canva itself as well. And I'll be using Sketchfab to get this 3D model of a laptop which I'll be using in my composition. So once I've added the background into the composition, what I'll be doing is actually use an effect called hue and saturation. The reason why I'll be using this effect is because I'll be actually making the background look a lot more darker. So what I'll be doing is actually make the saturation and as well as decrease the lightness so that the background can be completely dark. After that, I'll be adding the 3D laptop into the composition, and as you can see, now once that is done, what I'll be doing is actually I'll be creating a rectangle shape. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want to create a screen and add some elements onto it. So to do that, what I'll be doing is first create a rectangle, which you guys can see. So we'll be keeping its fill on and keeping its stroke off. After that, I'll be using a gradient ramp effect onto the screen and the rectangle which we recently made, and adjust its color so it looks a lot more aesthetic and realistic. So once that is done, I'll be creating another rectangle, and using the rectangle tool, I'll be creating a rectangle. After that, I'll be actually keeping the fill off and stroke on so that I can create a design which I want to. And then I'll be going into the contents of the rectangle, and then what I'll be doing is actually making the edges of the rectangle completely round. So to do that, I'll be going to roundness and actually set it to the maximum level. Once that is done, I'll be actually creating a text box so that I can create elements inside this rectangle. I'll be currently putting the number 0 into it because I'll be later on animating the elements and in these numbers which are inside the rectangle, and currently I'm just adjusting the size of the text letter. So next I'll be using an effect called slider controls where I can animate the number and the text which I have added into the screen. What I'll be doing is actually add keyframes into the slider control by starting it from 0 and actually putting the end number to 10,000 right now. Now once this is done, I'll be actually going into the text element and then press the text button and then actually paralleling the source text with the slider control so that the values of the text can actually be matched to the slider control. So now what I'll be doing is actually what we need is that we need to make the numbers actually being animated, and as you can see currently the numbers are actually being shown in decimal form. So to fix that and show it to in rounded format, what I'll be doing is using this expression which you guys can see in the screen. I'll be also adding the expression into the description so that you guys can copy and keep it with you guys. You can use it every time when you are actually using this same element into your composition as well. And I'll be smoothing the keyframes and also just making it a lot more quicker. And what I'll be doing is actually change its value from 10,000 to 100,000. Now what I'll be doing next is actually downloading this eye picture which I'll be getting from Canva itself. And once we have added it quickly into our composition, I'll be actually using it into our screen. And next I'll be using a gradient ramp effect onto it so that we can change its color. And overall I'll be changing the color into a yellowish tone so that we'll be following a proper color scheme. And I think that the yellow, white, black color scheme will look a lot more aesthetic. So we'll be following this color scheme. And what I'll be doing is actually also copying the same gradient rail and going to add into a stroke which was inside the screen so that it has also similar color scheme overall. As you guys can see in the screen, the numbers are perfectly being animated and it looks really great. I have actually animated the trim path of the stroke so it looks a lot more better right now and the visuals look great. So what I'll be doing next is actually just opening the graph editor and going to be making the animation, making the keyframe a lot more faster so that it has a smooth look overall. And as you guys can see on the screen, it looks really great and looks really perfect right now. And I'll be quickly renaming the PNG to I so that it is a lot more easier for us to understand. And I'll be adding a quick fade in effect into our text element. So to do that, what I'll be doing is actually make a keyframe element. So to do that, what I'll be doing is actually just make a quick keyframe on the opacity, set it to 0 at the very start, and just a little bit further into time we'll be actually setting it back to 100 so that as you guys can see there will be a fade in effect. And I've added a keyframe onto the scale of the eye. To do that, what I have done actually just press the keyframe on the scale button and also set it to 0 at the very start, and then further down the line I've actually set it to back to 100. And I'll be next adding a deep glow effect into the text where the text overall makes a really glowy effect, and then just adjusting its parameter so it looks perfectly how we want to. After this is done, our screen elements are all completed, and what we'll be doing next is actually pre-composing all these elements. So that you guys can see on the screen right now, our screen is created and it is movable to anywhere, wherever we want. So first I'll be doing is actually just making the composition 3D itself, and then parenting it to the laptop, so that whenever the laptop moves, as well as the screen of the screen which we made recently will be also moving, which you guys can see on the screen. Now next up, what we have to do is actually just adjust the screen to our laptop so that it moves perfectly according to the movement of the laptop. So we'll be adjusting the position of the screen just quickly. You can set the position and as well as the rotation of the screen so that it is set perfectly onto the screen of the laptop, which you guys can see I'll be doing currently. Now you guys can see on the screen, wherever the laptop is moving, the screen is also moving adjacently. So it looks a really aesthetic, it keeps a really aesthetic look, and also it helps us to keep a smooth look overall. So this is the final look of our laptop. It looks really great, as you guys can see, perfectly aligned and perfectly set onto our laptop, and our screen looks perfectly set onto the laptop. We are increasing the size in changing the position, but the screen is perfectly set onto the laptop, and we'll be setting it position right now and rotation to this place. Now quickly I'll be creating another shape layer, and I'll be adding a text layer onto it. And first what I'll be doing is actually just increasing the size of the stroke so that it will be like a cover for the text layer, and adjust its color to yellow. And after that I'll be adding a text layer and then writing the word engagement onto it. And currently I just need to set up the font size so it becomes visible, and also I'll be setting its color to black. Now what I'll be doing is actually just adjusting the size of the stroke so that it becomes perfectly set according to our text. Okay, once our text layer and the shape layer is all set, next I'll be using an effect called roughen edges so that our shape layer can have a roughen look onto our composition. So let me just add it quickly. And once I've done that, I'll be actually just changing up the settings of the roughen edges. So increasing the border, increasing the edge sharpness, and as well as increasing the scale so that it has a complete roughen look, so it will have a realistic type look onto overall composition. Now to animate it, first I'll be making a trim path animation onto the shape layer which we recently made, and just adjusting its end points and start points, and then press the F9 button to smoothen the keyframes, and as well as go to the graph editor to fasten the keyframe so that it has a smoothie look, which you guys can see on the screen right now. And on the text layer I'll be adding a typewriter effect. So to do that, what I'll be doing is to first select the animate button, then press opacity. After that, we'll set the opacity to 0 and open the range selector, and then press the start keyframe. And as it is already set in 0, check out when our shape layer is actually set and fully animated. Also, we'll be animating at that same point completely our text layer. So you guys can see on the screen, our text layer is being animated according to the shape layer which we have recently made. So currently you guys can see on the screen it looks perfectly set. We can adjust the keyframes and the speed of the animation, but overall it looks perfectly set. Okay, once we have set the animation stuff, next we'll be doing is actually just making a pre-composition of this, and we'll be naming it to engagement itself so that we can understand and keep things all clear and simple for us. After that, I'll be pressing the 3D button onto our composition which we recently made, and then adjust its rotation so it has an overall 3D look onto it. Now I'll be creating an arrow. So to do that, first I'll be selecting the pen tool, and then I'll be creating a shape quickly and also adjusting the stroke first so it becomes easier for us to visualize. And you guys can see on the screen currently I'm just making the arrow. The reason I'm using the pen tool to create the arrow is because I'll be actually animating the arrow, so it will look a lot more smoother and nice. Overall, the whole composition will look a lot more aesthetic. Once it's done, what we'll be doing is adjusting the taper. So to do that, what I'll be doing is actually go to the shape and then go to stroke, and then what I'll be doing is just go to taper and then actually increasing the start length as well as the end length of the arrows. So let me just quickly do that. Okay, once that is done, it looks good, and then we'll be just adjusting its scale so that looks perfectly all set. And then as well as we will be also making this element also 3D. Now we'll be adding a trim part animation onto the arrow which we were talking previously. So currently I'll be doing it quickly. We'll be setting the end point as well as the start point, and just press the F9 button to smoothen the keyframes and go to the graph editor to make it a fast, clean look, which you guys can see looks perfectly good, perfectly set. You guys can see the current status of the video. So currently all the animations look all smooth and looks really good. The overall look of the video is looking really professional. I'll be just adjusting this text box which we made the engagement box so that it animates properly and is animating on the perfect timing, as well as setting the shape layer animation which between path which we recently made to be shown a lot more faster at the very start. So this is some important part which is all completed. So now what we'll be doing is actually create a camera and as well as a null layer and attach the camera to the null layer. And now we'll be animating the whole composition using the null object and as well as paralleling the camera to the null. Now what we'll be doing is actually adding a position keyframe onto the null so that we can move it upwards and animate the whole composition at the same time. So this is the point which I'll be actually making the movement from, and we'll be making the movement to upwards so that the whole composition moves upwards. And right now I'll be also making the background to 3D because I also want the background to be animated at the same time. The reason why our laptop is actually behind the background is because like due to the 3D nature of the whole overall composition. So what I'll be doing is actually just increasing the Z-axis, which you can do on the position of the laptop so that overall it can be all set. And the reason why I did this because you can see on the through the custom view is because the background is actually on front of the laptop. So that is why this actually happened. So to fix this, we actually just made the position of the laptop to be just a lot more further than the background. Okay, so once our keyframes are set, we'll be just pressing F9 to make it a lot more smoother and then using the graph editor to make it even more smoother. And this is how currently our movement of the whole composition looks like. Now what we'll be doing is actually use an effect called CC Reptile into our background. The reason why we are doing this is because we want to increase the size and length of our background but also not change the overall perspective of the whole background. So to do that, what we'll be doing is just use the CC Reptile effect and increase the numbers, expand the left side, right side, up and down side so that our whole composition is actually being covered. And you guys can see on the screen the background has been completely covered. So this is the use of the CC Reptile effect. Okay, looks really perfect right now. Just need to add elements onto the upper part of the video. Now what we'll be doing is actually add the brain PNG into our composition. So let me just do that quickly. And we'll be setting it to 3D at the very start itself so that we can just actually set the position of it to the top point itself and set the position of the Z-axis of the brain PNG so it doesn't collide with the background. You guys can see currently. Next we'll be adding the crumbled paper into our composition and we want it to be only covered with the brain. So to do that, what I'll be doing is actually just track matte it with the brain PNG, and you guys can see currently. First I'll be renaming this image to brain so it becomes a lot more easier for us to understand. And you guys can see currently the overall crumbled paper image has been covered with the brain PNG and looks really good. Just need to set some things now. So first what we'll be doing is actually adjusting the blend mode, and to do that what we'll be doing is just select the from normal to hard light, and then we'll be actually using a hue and saturation effect. Last time we used it for like adjusting the lighting and adjusting the saturation, but this time we'll be actually using to color the overall crumbled paper and overall the blended picture. First we'll be just selecting the colorize button, and then after that we'll be adjusting the angle of the colorize tint, and we'll be selecting it to something which we feel like is actually a lot more suitable in the situation. Now to add a wavy effect, we'll be adding a wave warp effect onto our crumbled paper, and then adjust the position of our crumbled paper, and then adjust the wave height as well as the wave length. So you guys can see currently, I think by increasing the width and as well as like lowering the speed, it will look a lot more better. And you guys can see currently looks something like this. It looks really good in my opinion. Also what we can do is actually just change some coloring. So let us just make it a lot more yellowish. Now we'll be adding another text layer and adding a text onto our screen, and we'll be just writing quickly here dopamine. What we'll be doing is actually just going to track matte the dopamine with the crumbled paper, and then adjust the rotation of the text layer, and then track matte the dopamine text layer with our crumbled paper. So you guys can see currently how our overall composition looks like. The reason why I actually made the track matte with the crumbled paper is because we want the dopamine text to be shown exactly at the same time the waves are being shown up. So that's the reason why I actually track matte the text layer with the crumbled paper. So what we'll be doing is actually next pre-composing the whole thing. So currently you guys can see that I cannot see the complete brain animation which we made. This is because like we need to adjust like the position of the brain in our pre-composition. So let's just do that quickly. And we can overall set the other things and set the position keyframe which we made for the crumbled paper, which you guys can see on the screen. Then press the F9 button, and then after that making the keyframe a lot more faster so it has an overall smooth look. and you guys can see it's being perfectly being shown and exactly how we want to. Now what we can do is just adjust the pre-composition's position to upward how we want to, and also like adjust its z-axis so that it does not collide with the background. So you guys can see currently overall how the composition looks like. Okay, the animation looks perfect and the dopamine index is being shown perfectly. Now what I'll be doing is just adding some camera movement and camera animation. So I'll be making some animations with the camera now, just some zoom ins and zoom out. So overall it looks really good. Next up what I'll be doing is actually create a shape layer and set its color to green to show a rise in the value. And just using the pen tool I'll be creating the shape layer, and by selecting the shape layer I'll be creating some points into the complete line itself, so that I can create some designs overall within the shape line itself. And you guys can see currently I created this wave type line, and then just increasing the stroke a little bit so it looks a lot more prominent. And then after that as well as we'll make it 3D as well, so that it is being shown actually on the upper part of the video. So let's just quickly like make it being shown upper on the upper side, and then just its position so that it's perfectly all set and does not collide with the background, which you guys can see on the screen right now. Next what we'll be doing is actually just selecting the shape layer and going into the contents, then going to shape, and then actually selecting the stroke button. Next what we'll be doing is actually just making the tapers around the shape layer. After that is done, we'll be actually creating dashes, and we can do that by actually pressing the plus button alongside of the dashes, and then we'll be just like changing the offset and as well as the dash size, which you guys can see on the screen right now. Now I'll be creating another green solid, and you guys can see on the screen how I made it. So what I actually want to do is actually create a glowy area below the shape layer which we want to make. First we'll be making a solid, and after that what we'll be doing is actually select the solid and then press the pen tool so that we can create a mask. And now what we'll be doing is actually create a mask alongside the lines, and you guys can see on the screen right now I'm actually doing it currently. Okay, so the masking is completely done, and you guys can see on the screen the below part has been completely masked out, so that's looking really good. Next up what we'll be doing is actually just increase the feather of the mask so it has a glowy look and does not have a hard look overall on its edges. And you guys can see on the screen right now it looks really good and completely being having a glow just on the downward side of the line shape layer which we made, adjusting the tapers little bit. And what we'll be doing is actually just we want to create an animation around the offset so that we have the lines being moved consistently throughout the time. So to do that index by pressing the alt button as well as clicking on the stopwatch, we can get the expression bar, and then in the expression bar we'll be actually typing time steric 40 so that we can have some movement along with the dashed lines. And to animate the look of the glowy area, we'll be adding some opacity keyframes so that looks really good and being animated overall into the whole scene. And then select all the keyframes and just press F9 so that they become completely smoothened. So currently you guys can see how the overall looks of the scene is being like. Looks really nice, really aesthetic. Okay, looks really perfect. The movement looks really great. So this is how the complete composition currently looks like. Quickly then I'll be actually renaming the pre-composition of brain and set it to brain. And now what I'll be doing is actually into the brain pre-composition we'll be adding a drop shadow effect and set the color to white, and then just add some white edges onto our pre-composition, which you guys can see on the screen. We'll be keeping the opacity to completely 100, and then adjust the distance of the pre-composition shadow and set its angle to the wherever we like. So it's like up to you to wherever you want to set it. And then what we'll be doing is actually duplicating the drop shadow again, but this time we'll be actually setting it to black. And to add the depth onto the overall image, we'll be actually doing this technique. So we'll be having two drop shadows into our brain composition. So currently you guys can see below the black drop shadow on the pre-composition. It looks really great. Now next I'll be adding the IPNG again. I can also get it again from Canva, but I already have it in my pre-composition. So let me just quickly copy it and add it into the pre-composition and set its color to something a lot more light color to something white. But first I'll be actually making it 3D so that it is positioned perfectly, and then later on I'll be just copying it. So let me just do it first itself. And then I'll be adding an invert effect. So that from its color black, it's being inverted to white. And I'll be just adjusting the rotation after making it 3D, and then just making some duplicates. So that there are 4 pieces of this in our scene. Now what I'll be doing is actually adding some wiggle effect into these PNGs. So to do that, I'll be using again the expression bar by pressing the Alt button as well as pressing the stopwatch button, so that I can create and get the expression bar and put in this expression posture as time 12 and wiggle 4 and 5, and then add this expression to all the IPNGs. But I'll be changing some parameters so that they're actually not moving all at the same time. And you guys can see on the screen, 2 of them are actually having same parameters and 2 of them are literally having a little bit different parameters. Then after that, I'll be actually creating a scale animation by first putting the scale to 100 at the very start, and then by putting the scale to 0 at the very start, and then later on the scale actually being shifted to 100. And you guys can see on the screen right now. Okay, so overall our scene has been completely done, but there are some things which we can add to even enhance the look of the overall scene. But first what I'll be doing is actually just add a rotation keyframe onto our laptop, so it looks really great. Let me just quickly add this into our composition. You guys can see currently I'm adding a rotation element onto our laptop and add some position keyframe onto itself. So this is how it currently it will be looking like. But first we'll be actually selecting the keyframes, pressing the F9 button, and then using graph editor we'll be just fastening the keyframes, and this is how it currently looks like. Looks really great, really amazing movement. And we can add some animation on the null camera itself as well. So this is how it will be currently looking like. We'll be just setting its keyframe speed in the graph editor. So this is how currently it will look like. Oh, it looks really smooth. The movement looks overall very smooth, and then it will have an upward movement to the top, and then have a zoom out movement again. So this is why I really advise to actually use the null camera for making the zoom out and zoom in movements, because it looks really smooth. Now what I'll be doing is just quickly add the drop shadow effect onto the IPNGs, which we actually added in later onto our scene, and set its color to green, and then copy and paste and add to all of the other IPNGs. Now next I'll be adding some realistic lighting onto the video. So to do that, what I'll be doing is actually adding a spotlight onto our composition, and you guys can see on the screen right now just some of the area is currently being lighter. This is actually helping in actually making our scene a lot more realistic, and adding another light so that we can add some lights on the other side itself as well. And then is the rotation of the lights, so it's being perfectly set, and the lighting overall in the whole composition looks really good. So this is how it looks without the lighting, and this is how it looks with the lighting. We can increase the intensity of this slide so that overall we can add more lighting onto the scene. Now what we'll be doing next is actually making the spotlights paralleling to the null, so that when we're making the upward movement and overall the movement of the whole camera is being actually done according to the lighting as well. So you guys can see on the screen currently the lighting overall looks amazing, especially at the very start when the light is actually being faded in. Yes, at this point it looks really good. Next I'll be adding a film grain effect into the composition, and you can find this on Canva, or you can also get it from the project file which I'll be actually sharing in the description of the video, which you guys can check out for free. And then set its blend mode to screen so that we have a film grain effect onto the whole composition. Now next I'll be actually creating an adjustment layer, and then I'll be adding an effect called posture as time into the whole composition, and set its value to 16. It will add a chunky effect onto the whole video, and it will look really amazing and smooth. Next I'll be adding another adjustment layer, and then add an effect called lumetri color so that we can adjust some coloring of the whole video, and it looks a lot more cinematic. We're adjusting some parameters, so overall the look of the video looks a lot more better. And then we can add a wiggle effect onto the whole composition. So to do it, what I'll be doing is actually going to the null and then pressing the Alt button as well as the keyframe button in the position. We'll be getting the expression bar and setting and adding an expression called wiggle 2 and 3 so that we can have a wiggle effect onto our whole composition. And after that, our scene will be all completely set and done. Hopefully you did get to learn a lot of things from this tutorial, and yes, do let me know in the comments on what topic should I make a video next. Until then, you guys can check out this recent video which I've uploaded, and hopefully see you soon.